Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio. That's AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com, or give them a call to find out what's for dinner at 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! All right, and a big welcome in, everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, all of our independents, as well as everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Oceanic, Spectrum, and WOW Cable Television affiliates in select markets, plus Hotel TV and all Nielsen-rated markets as well. All right, folks, lots and lots going on in Major League Baseball because the winter meetings are going on right now. And there's been a lot of trades, of course. There's been a lot of signings, free agent signings. There's all kinds of things going on right now. And, of course, a lot of people are talking still about the Juan Soto mega deal, which I think is a colossal mistake. But then again, that's just my opinion, and nobody else's, really. I don't know about that. But what I will say is that there's a lot of movement. And what I'm really curious of is because of the Juan Soto deal, what's going to happen with Kyle Tucker? And look, there's a lot of options out there for Kyle Tucker. Folks, if you don't know who this guy is, he is a superstar player for the Houston Astros. And man, this guy is legit. He can do it. He steals bases, got a great glove, really big. This is a five-tool player. It's the old it is what it is. And then you think about what Astros general manager Dana Brown had said at the meetings, that Houston is receptive to trading anyone. And I think, look, Kyle Tucker is probably the most versatile, huge upside player that they have. Of course, Yordan Alvarez being their big power hitter, their big thumper in the cleanup spot. And Alex Bregman is likely going to get dealed if he hasn't been dealed already. But Kyle Tucker is the really important one here because you think about what happened, for example, with the Yankees missing out on Juan Soto, which I think it was a big mistake on Juan Soto's part, but it doesn't really matter what I think. It seems as though Kyle Tucker is a better player across the board than Juan Soto. And you say, well, how could you say such a thing? Well, look. We could compare the players, and this is always fun to compare the baseball players head to head. I kind of like it, and I don't know, should we do it? Should we not? But let's first talk a little bit about what Kyle Tucker brings to the table. Kyle brings a big arm, a great glove. He hits for power, he hits for average, and the guy can run. He is a bona fide five-tool player. I mean, seriously, folks, you have to look at it as this guy can really do it at all ends. He really can. And so when you think about Juan Soto, you say, okay, he's got a good eye. He can hit for average. He hits for power. But I think that's kind of where it ends. And this is the real issue as I see it. I say, all right, this guy's got 2 out of the 5 tools that is needed. And I have to tell you, folks, there is an enormous difference between these 2 players. Kyle Tucker would actually fit into the Yankees lineup better, in my opinion, than Juan Soto. I don't really care about their career numbers and all this other crap. I mean, look, end of day, they're both world champions. They're both multiple-time All-Stars. They're both silver sluggers. But remember, the gold glove belongs to Kyle Tucker. And that's what you got to look at. Kyle actually has a really good glove and a really good arm. However, Juan Soto has an average arm at best, and he's not lazy in the field where Juan Soto will one-hand the ball. He'll just nonchalantly run over and get style points, so to say, when it comes to, here, look at me, I just made an easy catch, or I made a difficult catch look easy, or some nonsense like that. And so the part that I have a problem with is, look, these guys play a similar position. And you look at the games, you look at the numbers, the stats. The WAR, it's a little bit better for Juan Soto. Games played, Juan's got actually a 936 games played versus Kyle only a 633. He's a young kid still. Plate appearances, obviously, there's about 1,500 more for Juan Soto. And hits, it's the same thing in the games. Basically, the ratios are the same. However, Kyle, in 303 less games, has approximately 37 more. He has 37 more stolen bases. Batting average is almost dead heat. On base percentage a little bit favor of Juan Soto. Slugging percentage a dead heat. OPS very close. OPS plus very close. And look, folks, you think about upside and value, and that's really what we're after here. Upside and value. And you say, okay, in those plate appearances, Juan Soto has had 1,500 more plate appearances than Kyle Tucker, but the extra base hits, Kyle's only 100 behind. Out of that 1,500 at-bat difference is actually 1,527, to be honest. All right, that's the exact number. So you think about also the time on base with runners in position or hit by pitch or whatnot. Listen, the ratio favors Kyle Tucker. Total outs made. Juan Soto's made a lot of outs. And at the end of the day, when you look at the runs created, Kyle Tucker is creating more runs per at-bat than Juan Soto. There's a heavy dose of reality. Even the batting average on balls in play, Kyle Tucker is right behind Juan Soto. And then you look at the runs produced. The ratio is even. So if you say, well, Juan Soto was the best pickup of all the free agent time, I don't think so. I think you really got to take a harder look at this. So the Astros, I mean, look, they're going to want an enormous haul back if they do make some kind of a deal. And of course, MLB Network had reported for the New York Post that Tucker is seen as more and more likely to be traded. Now, Kyle is a 3-time All-Star and has essentially cemented himself as one of the top outfielders in the game over the past 4 years, unlike Juan Soto. Produced 112 home runs. He had a half a season last year because of injury. 360 RBIs, 80 stolen bases, and a 145 OPS plus and a 21.2 WAR. That's pretty damn good. That's wins against replacement for all you that don't know what that means. When we look at what these numbers represent, you're like, this guy is really damn good. However, Tucker, of course, is due to reach free agency at the end of next season, and he's going to be doing so in his ripe old age of 29, putting him smack in the middle of where Juan Soto and Aaron Judge are located, right? Soto at 26 and Aaron Judge at that time at 31. So look, the two best recent comps when you reach the open market, and assuming Tucker puts together a strong walk year, he figures to command a contract no less than $400 to $500 million. Of course, that is per The Athletic. But of course, MLB has said the Yankees, Cubs, Giants, Phillies have all expressed interest in acquiring Kyle Tucker. And of course, the Yankees were also linked to Tucker by MLB as well. And frankly, every team in Major League Baseball should be interested in a guy like him because he really is a five-tool player. And those are far and few between. If you don't know what that is, that's hitting for power, hitting for average, that's running ability, a big arm, and what else? That's right. There are 5 tools. Think about that. That's right. This guy does it all. He's got a gold glove. He can do everything. And so why wouldn't any team be interested? And frankly, the Yankees, in my opinion, they were smart not to re-sign Juan Soto because they can get a guy that actually gets on base. He can run around the bases a hell of a lot more swiftly. And I think it's a big winner for the Yankees to go and pursue Kyle Tucker rather than signing, of course, Juan Soto. That's right. And I give the applause only because if you're looking for a replacement for Juan Soto, Kyle is the guy. And if you can't for some reason get Kyle Tucker, then Teoscar Hernandez, which we did a comparison of yesterday, Teoscar Hernandez is almost as good. I would argue he's probably a little bit more versatile and better than Juan Soto anyway. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to come back with more baseball here on the Sports Circus in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC Sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call
714-948-0100, 714-948-0100, again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. All right. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, including our friends over in Atlanta on WDJY 99.1 FM. Over in Auburn, Alabama, a big hello to everybody on WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves. Sorry to hear about the loss of a delayed applause, of course. Hey, listen, it's live, folks. Sorry to hear about the loss of Max Fried to the New York Yankees, which I think is a big blow to the Atlanta Braves. A very good ground ball pitcher. We're going to get to Max in just a minute, but might as well talk about him anyway, because, Max Fried is a ground ball pitcher, throws a lot of ground balls, but it seems like the Yankees have a little issue over there at third base, which would seem to be a need to fill for the Yankees. And I would look to see the Yankees make yet another move, and that would be possibly for Alex Bregman, who is a solid third baseman for the Houston Astros. And the Astros say, hey, listen, man, everybody is available right now. So if everybody is available, that would mean not only Kyle Tucker is available, but also Alex Bregman. So those two pieces could possibly go to the New York Yankees. I mean, the Yankees certainly have the pockets to cover that too. What I don't really understand is the average annual value of these contracts, and you look at these at-bats, how much money per at-bat these guys are making. I had mentioned a day or two ago with Juan Soto with $85,000 per at-bat. Shohei Ohtani's contract looks like it yields, if I did the calculations right, $116,000 per at-bat. Mike Trout is about $59,000 per at-bat. Of course, with all his injuries, he's really averaging, I guess, closer to $64,000, $65,000 per at-bat. Folks, let's take this into perspective. The average American makes about, $43,000, $44,000 a year? A year. And these guys are just continually saying, well, show me the money! Yeah, show me the money. Give me some more money. Because as if one at-bat won't cover the light bill, let's make sure that we have two at-bats to cover half the game, which is enough for somebody who's a college graduate and making some really good money in America. Let's put this into perspective. Just to go to a baseball game, what does it cost for a family of four? Folks, it's really expensive. It used to be where tickets, I remember when I was a kid, I would take the train up to Wrigley Field for 25 cents, get the free transfer at Washington, up to the Howard Street L, take that, exit at Addison. It cost me $1 to get into Wrigley Field, a quarter for a Coke, a quarter for a hot dog, and a quarter back. Not a quarterback, if you will. No, but it was 25 cents to get back home. And the reality is I can go for a double header for $2 for the entire day. And I mean, even nowadays, you look at those same seats with those benches out in right field or left field, whatever. Well, in center field, you can't really sit unless you're above the green tarp. The reality is now it's, $30, $40, $50, $100 to go to a ball game. right? And the consumer price index did not change that much. The cost of a basket of groceries, right? You look at what does it cost for a gallon of milk? A gallon of milk today should cost you somewhere around $2.50, $3. Well, back then, a gallon of milk cost about $1.50, right? And so that's about a 40% increase. Just taking that item. A loaf of bread would cost maybe 50 cents. Now a loaf of bread will cost you anywhere from $1.50 to $5, depending on the type. We'll go with the cheap bread. So we'll say maybe $1.50. All right, so that's maybe a 3-to-1 differential. So you look at these, even a carton of eggs. A dozen eggs back then would have cost about 50 cents. Now you can get them on sale for maybe $1.50, whatever. So maybe we'll call it 3 times the difference for the consumer price index. If that is the case, you look at the cost of going to a baseball game back then. For me to sit out in the outfield at Wrigley Field, it cost me $1. Now it costs no less. Oh, geez, I don't even know what the actual number is. And you know what? I'm very curious we'll go to ticket price, Wrigley Field. Folks, I'm doing this on the fly here. Wrigley Field, outfield. All right, and let's see what the current ticket price is according to DuckDuckGo. And we're going to go to just pick your favorite place here. We'll go to MLB.com, and let's find out what they say a ticket at Wrigley Field costs, because I'm quite curious. I'm going to guess it's going to be no less than $20 to $25 to get in to Wrigley Field. And I'm talking about just to go sit in the outfield, right? And so we'll go to MLB.com, and we'll go to, I don't want to go to season ticket. I don't know if they have individual tickets, suites, so forth, ticket plan, schedule. Let's just go to the schedule. And then what we'll do is we'll just hit on one of the regular season games. We'll just pick a regular season game. All right. And this is the way to do it, folks. And so there, I'm not going to a loaded site where, he's trying to make it look like this or that. Now, he's not trying to do that. All he's doing is he's looking at a schedule, and I'm going to pick a game somewhere in May, right? Or better yet, let's just take April against, I don't know, maybe a Wednesday game. No, we don't want to take the Dodgers game. We'll take the Texas Rangers, for example. All right, so we'll take this particular game against the Rangers, and then let's find out. It's an afternoon game. All right. And then let's see if we can come up with some kind of a ticket price. And this is really, as it comes down to it, you say, well, what is the real cost? Now, I'm going to guess maybe $25 for the base price for a ticket. All right? So we'll go game ticket. Yeah, and you're doing this along with me here, folks. And why are we doing it? Because what we're trying to find is the real number of all these contracts, how it affects people like you and me. And honestly, that's really what you have to look at. How does it affect each and every one of us, right? And so not everybody can afford to go to these expensive games. And I don't know, man, it is just really, really expensive to go to baseball games. And so even the spring training tickets, I know the spring training tickets are very expensive. So when you look at what is your take-home pay, your take-home pay is likely going to be somewhere around 70% of whatever your gross number is. And that's a real fair number. That's not, going completely out of bounds. And so the regular ticket price for a game is only so affordable in the first place. Honestly. And that is a real big problem. Because when we were kids, not only did we go by ourselves, but maybe if my dad took me to a ball game, and we would go to the south side because he worked in the daytime, so we'd go see the White Sox at night because the Cubs did not play night games because they didn't have lights at Wrigley Field. But the reality is, he would still pay a few dollars for those tickets, maybe $5 for us to get box seats back then. So here's a heavy dose of reality. If you're going just to a spring training game, we haven't even gotten to the regular games, right? And if you want to sit on the lawn and watch the Cubs play out in the general admission for the lawn, it's $50. $50. That's crazy. And by the way, let's say you want to sit somewhere, I don't know, in better seats. Let's just say you somewhere around first base or third base. Never mind home plate. Home plate here. You can get a ticket there way in the back for $87 a pop. If you want to sit over in, I don't know, around for the first base side, those tickets $121. That's right. This is spring training. So you say, well, wait a minute. These contracts, where were you going with this? Well, the contracts are so damn big. And you say, well, why in the world would I ever pay that kind of money to go see a ball game? Well, because people are so locked into doing what? Seeing their favorite team in their favorite parks. And you're going to pay $121 to go see a spring training game? I'm sorry, folks, but there's something terribly wrong with that. And that's just how I feel about it. But I think a lot of people feel the same thing. They're like, wait, this doesn't even make a lot of sense. So if the average American makes $40,000, and let's just say they want to take a family of 4 just to a spring training game, right? A spring training game, let alone one of the other games. We haven't even gotten to the Wrigley Field games. You're going to spend $500, upwards towards $500 for a spring training game? And that's just to get in. That doesn't include food. That doesn't include parking. That doesn't include souvenirs. So even let's say you don't get a souvenir. Now you're another 100, maybe another 150 in. That's right. Oh, and by the way, when we think about the ticket cost, as I had mentioned, to go sit out there in the bleachers at Wrigley Field, when I was a kid, now the bleacher tickets are $75 on the cheap. And this is to a game that's in the middle of April, for example. Yeah, that's on April 26th, for example, this coming year. Listen, folks, $100 for a spring training game, $75 for the bleachers, a regular game, makes no sense. Back here in a few minutes with that discussion. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by The Sports Circus. Make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests. All of our recorded shows are on podcast platforms such as Apple, Amazon, Audible, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, you name it, we're there. Can't get away from us. Also, make sure you check out the store. A shameless plug for the Sports Circus. It's Christmas time, folks. And guess what? Lots of great Christmas ideas, even for yourself. Pick up something fun from the store, maybe a hat, a knitted hat for the wintertime, a fleece coat, a hoodie, sweatpants, travel mug, pillows, mouse pads, you name it, they're there. Check it out at thesportscircus.com and just click on store, if you will. All right. And welcome back to everybody on TV and radio. You know who you are. In the last segment, talking about the price of baseball games and these contracts. This is how it actually translates to people like you and me. So as we see these ridiculous signings, you know, Christmas time is always the winter meeting time, right around there, just before Christmas. And so many players get these mega monster payouts. And, you know, good for them. So be it. And they all want to say, show me the money! That's right. And they all do. And they all get their money. And so be it. But how does it affect us? I left off in the last segment talking about the cost of going to a baseball game. If you're sitting, for example, on a bench out in Wrigley Field, which I grew up going to those games, and it used to cost me $1 to get in. And then I compared it with the Consumer Price Index at basically being, we'll say even on the high side, 3 times, maybe even 4 times for the price of a basket of groceries. And honestly, that's not even... I don't even know. That's not even a real translation, right? So when you look at the Consumer Price Index, you say, well, yeah, you know, you compare a basket of groceries and I don't know, it just doesn't seem right that the ticket prices are the same. So as we look at this, we say, why is it a basket of groceries would cost X back then? And then you look at it today and say, well, yeah, it's more expensive. Well, they say, well, you know, people make more money. I get all that stuff. But the CPI is the exact item that we should be looking at. And when we look at that, we say, all right, well, how does that affect us? Well, let's face it, because ultimately people have discretionary income. And when they have that discretionary income, they say, well, what are the price differences, right? So we go prices from, we'll say 1978 to, let's do it this way. We're doing this on the fly again here, folks, to 2024. All right, we'll go CPI. And so ultimately, the income is probably going to match what the grocery differences were. And so as we look at it, we say, okay, there are inflation calculators and all this other neat stuff. And so as I look at it, we'll just say we'll take, $20,000. So $20,000 in January of, we'll call it 1978. That's what I had picked before. To November of 2024. Okay, it's a 5-to-1 ratio. So $20,000 in 1978, back when I was going to baseball games at Wrigley Field, is now has the same buying power as $100,000. There's something called the real rate of exchange and the nominal rate of exchange. That is the actual nominal rate of exchange, the hard number. The real rate of exchange is the actual buying power. That's how you have to look at this. So that same $1 entry into Wrigley Field technically would cost about $5 now, if that were the case. But free agency happened, and free agency drove everything through the ceiling. And you have a guy by the name of Curt Flood to thank for that in the first place. And of course, Curt, good for him, but bad for baseball goers. And we say, all right, we have all these people making all this money. And now at Wrigley Field, I have to tell you this one, and I promise I'll stop. Looking at this baseball games, I had said it was $75 to go to a seat to sit in the bleachers. Okay, now that same game, and it's just an April game, to sit essentially behind the Cubs dugout, 2 tickets, $1,116 each. That's ridiculous. Come on, man. That same seat should cost probably $50. But because of these contracts of these players, they're forced, the ownership is forced to charge ticket prices that are where. I can't even say it because we're on regular FCC radio, unlike the podcasts out there. But the reality is the ticket prices have gone bananas. It makes no sense. I'm done with this consumer price index nonsensical discussion. And back to the winter meetings. I mean, Garrett Crochet was a guy that the White Sox coveted for quite some time, but nope. Now the White Sox said, and Chris Getz, we're going to go ahead and get rid of him because on the south side of Chicago, we don't need him. The Cubs are dealing guys too, but the White Sox have traded Garrett Crochet to the Red Sox, according to the Boston Globe and the Four Letter Network. And, of course, the Athletic too. The Red Sox are sending catcher Kyle Teal, a middle-of-the-road player. He's a catcher, along with outfielder Braden Montgomery, infielder Chase Meadroth, and right-handed pitcher Wilkman Gonzalez. That's according to MLB.com as well. Teal's the Red Sox number 4 prospect. Montgomery is the number 5. Meadroth is the number 11, and Gonzalez the number 14. That's all in the Red Sox prospect list. Crochet is a really good lefty, folks. And he just completed his first season as a starter with the White Sox. Despite the team's abysmal results, he still had a really good season, 146 innings pitched. They shut him down, 3.58 ERA. His whip is 1.07, so he's basically allowing 1 walk or hit per inning, 209 strikeouts in 146 innings. That's a guy that could get it done against only 33 walks. A very lopsided deal, again, for the opponent for the White Sox. In this case, it happens to be the Red Sox. And so while Garrett Crochet is changing his socks, the White Sox management should be changing its underwear, if you know what I mean. And a big boo follows that too, because this is a really bad deal for the White Sox. Really. And so what this deal signifies is that now Luis Robert, who is the only attractive player on the White Sox roster today, Luis Robert likely will be dealt off, if not during the winter meetings, he'll probably be dealt off during spring training. One way or another, it looks like the White Sox would likely get rid of Luis Robert as well, which I think is just terrible. When you look at this, you just scratch your head and say, well, wow, why? What are they doing here? They say, well, we just piled up a bunch of draft picks and whatnot. And so be it. I don't know. I don't really think that's a great move for the White Sox by any stretch of the imagination. And then you say, all right, well, hey, guess what? Well, we got more draft picks coming. How about the Rule 5 draft? Now, that whole idea is something that maybe you don't know what it is, but let me just give you a brief overview. Any player who turned pro at age 18 or younger in 2020 or at age 19 or older in 2021 is eligible for selection in Major League phase of the Rule 5 draft if he isn't on a 40-man roster. So clubs who take a player that in that phase, by the way, must pay his former team $100,000 and keep him on their active big league roster throughout the following season. And the player can't be sent to the minors without first clearing waivers, so all the other teams have a chance to get him, and then getting offered back to his original organization for half of his draft price. And look, let's face it, the last decade, 134 players have been selected in the Rule 5 draft. And of course, there were no Major League phase in 2021 for the obvious reason, but most haven't made much of a big league impact whatsoever, but some have been solid contributors, and here's a list of those 10. It's outside of Anthony Santander, which going back to 2016, he was one of those guys. And after not playing much over his first couple seasons, Santander continued to display that his power was there. Look, I think he had 44 home runs last year. He had about 230. In 2022, he hit 33 home runs. And the guy got better, actually 28 in 2023. And so, yeah, I mean, Santander is one of those guys in the Rule 5 that actually did something good. Mark Canha is another one of them, outfielder, first baseman. And he was selected by the Rockies, then traded to the A's from the Marlins. And Canha is the leader on the B-WAR list among picks in the past decade. And continues to be a productive player. I mean, look, this guy's pretty good. He's not a great player, but he's pretty good. And now another one of recent time here is Garrett Whitlock. And, of course, with the Boston Red Sox, selected by the Red Sox from the Yankees. So Whitlock was the number 4 pick in the 2020 virtual Rule 5 draft. And, of course, there were no winter meetings because of the alleged health scare. But anyway, his rookie season was 2021, has been his best at 1.96 ERA. And so this guy is pretty good. Odubel Herrera, who plays for the Yankees, is another, along with Brad Keller. I like Brad Keller. And so you look at these guys, they're not big impact players, but they're big enough players. And the Rule 5 draft just completed, and there was no real barn burners in that one. Tell you what, we're going to come back and switch gears and go to the NFL when we come back. Lots more to come here on the Circus. Don't go anywhere.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by Al's Number One Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Check them out at alsbeef.com. If you can't get over there, if you're not in Chicagoland, that's alsbeef.com. They are the originators of the Italian beef sandwich. It beats the daylights out of the Philly cheesesteak garbage sandwich. Check out Al's Number One Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy, or at alsbeef.com. Yes! Boy, that's good stuff. All right. Welcome back to everybody on our network affiliates from coast to coast, all of our independents as well. Thanks for joining us also on Facebook, everybody on Chicago Food Favorites. Also at the Sports Circus, streaming today's audio feed on Facebook as well. All right, shifting into the National Football League. Now, folks, I don't know if you realize this, but there are 32 teams in the league. However, 22 of those teams are east of the Mississippi River. Now, that's kind of a good bit of trivia, with the other 10 being, of course, on the other side. But you say, what is the significance of that? Well, I'll tell you why it's significant. Because when you look at this map, now I'm looking at a map of the National Football League, all their cities, and I say, all right, there's really a cluster from Minneapolis, Green Bay, Chicago, and it's almost as if there is a big line, like a triangle, like the Bermuda Triangle, but of football, from Minneapolis to Boston to Miami. So most of the teams are over in those areas. Why is it significant, you say? I'll tell you why. Because we think of the NFL, and they like to play games overseas. All right, so the NFL announced a new city for the 2025 season in their international games, and it's going to be Berlin. So now the NFL announced its latest expansion into Germany for these games. And after the league's recent game in Munich and Frankfurt, the NFL will host a regular season game in Berlin for the first time. And the move reflects the game's continued expansion internationally. Yeah, internationally. They just keep on doing it. As the league reaches new cities and increases the size of its international inventory. And of course, Roger Goodell, everybody's favorite person. I think he's just a puppet. That's just my opinion. He says, quote, "We first held a preseason game at the Olympic Stadium 34 years ago before it was home to NFL Europe's Berlin Thunder in the early 2000s. Now with almost 20 million NFL fans in Germany, we'll make a historic return to the city, playing a regular season game for the first time as we open the next chapter in our relationship with Berlin," close quote. So, NFL efforts to invest in flag football, in Berlin will also continue. That's a whole nother discussion, folks, flag football. In recent seasons, the NFL has played 4 international games in addition to the Jacksonville Jaguars' standing annual games at Wembley Stadium in London. And the league passed a resolution last December allowing schedule makers to expand the international slate from 4 to a maximum of 8 games beginning next year. So expectations were that the inventory increase would be gradual, and there could be just 5 games atop the Wembley game in 2025. So as of right now, a person with knowledge of the schedule expected the inventory to grow further already in 2025. And the NFL will also play its first regular season game in Madrid in 2025 at Real Madrid Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. So the NFL's announced 2025 international slate will include games in Berlin, Madrid, and London. Of course, London's Tottenham Hotspur Stadium will host 2 of those games, and that is an ongoing developing story. But we ask ourselves, why would they expand into Europe? Well, for obvious reasons, population, more people, more money. But then the purist will say, well, wait, why don't we keep this in the United States? Why don't we expand into games in different parts of the U.S.? Okay, so looking at that map, going back to this NFL map, there is essentially throughout the mountain states, if you're looking at the map like I am, in the mountain time zone, there is one team, the Denver Broncos, that play in the entire mountain time zone. There's an enormous void, and they say, well, yes, due to population. Okay, I get it. But then again, if the NFL wants to do something domestically, we just saw the Arizona Coyotes move up to Salt Lake City to become the Utah hockey team or Utah Hockey Club, call them what you will. Well, what we don't have is a pro football team in Salt Lake City. We don't have one in Portland. And could they support one? Absolutely they could. Could they support one in Montana? Probably not. New Mexico? I don't think so. But it would make sense that they would play games in those parts of the United States to keep the money local, or at least expand some of the games, maybe to neutral spots in Portland and Salt Lake City, because I don't see why they wouldn't do it. That seems to make a little bit of sense. But here's the economics of it. When you look at the 22 teams that play east of the Mississippi River, it's not too much of an inconvenience for them, especially those on the East Coast. And those right on the shoreline being Boston, Jets, Giants, Ravens, Eagles. I would say Redskins, but they're not. But those are the Commanders, etc. You look at those teams, even the Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tampa Bay Rays, they're right there. And even Atlanta's close enough. You ask yourself, well, is it reasonable for those teams to fly, let's just say New York to London? Okay, here's a heavy dose of reality, folks. New York to London is 3,451 miles, or 2,999 nautical miles. All right, so the distance between LA and New York, it's about 2,500 miles. So it's just a little bit further. It's basically another hour and a half on the airplane. So be it. And these players already travel in luxury anyway. However, let's say they travel from, I don't know, let's try Los Angeles to Honolulu. What do you think about that one? Let's try Los Angeles, because we can. All right, Los Angeles International Airport. All right. And then what we'll do is we'll do a simple trip over to Honolulu, because remember, they used to play the Pro Bowl there, right? Because that would keep the dollars domestic. But you look at the distance. The distance between LA to Honolulu is a hell of a lot more. It's actually 2,000 miles more than New York to London. So you've got all that revenue over there from a very ripe euro dollar, right? The euro versus dollar change, if you will. There's a lot of money sitting over there. And since 22 teams are technically closer than LA to Honolulu, then the trip from those 22 teams east of the Mississippi River make a lot more sense to go over to London or to Madrid or whatnot to go play football over there, because technically if they flew back over on the other side of the pond, look at the revenue that can come out of it and look at the distance traveled. So the reason the NFL will continue to play games over in Europe is because the travel isn't that bad in the first place. I mean, you look at it, folks, think about it. If you're flying from LA to Honolulu just on your trip, that's a 5-hour commitment. That's a long flight. Well, if you're traveling from New York to London, guess what? That's about a 5.5-hour flight anyway, just regular commercial. So look at the money, the translation in money. There's more discretionary money available from the audience in London and Madrid and Paris and Frankfurt, etc. There's a lot more money over there than, for example, if you're going just to Honolulu. So I make the argument that it's financially advantageous, but I think it's domestically irresponsible. I think Roger Goodell is putting the almighty dollar ahead of America and the National Football League. Because think about it. We have 32 teams here. Are they going to move 1 or 2 teams over there to Europe? Well, it would seem that the Jags are a natural move because Shad Khan does own a soccer team over there and a stadium. That's why the Jacksonville Jaguars play 2 games over there a year, seemingly. So if that's the case, if there is going to be a move, it will be, in my opinion, it will be the Jags. Will there be a new franchise? That's what I'm wondering. So if you add 2 teams, then maybe you could just have a regular team in London, maybe a regular team in Frankfurt, for example, and then the East Coast teams would play those teams divisionally, and then the West Coast teams could play who they're supposed to, but we still don't have expansion into cities like Portland and Salt Lake, which certainly could support NFL teams. So technically, the expansion could go from 32 to 36. I would like to see 2 teams in the western half, and then if they're going to do any expansion into Europe, then do 2 new franchises over there, like I said, in London and maybe Frankfurt. That makes a little bit more sense and keep the balance of the league intact. And so now you'll have 4 teams if this is the case, and you would have 2 in the NFC and then 2 in the AFC. Where they would land, I don't know. That would be a big juggling match, because as you look at the map right now, the map is really heavy. It's heavily clustered in certain regions, and that is part of the issue. So when you look at the teams, the way that they're stacked up, division by division, you say, okay, well, I mean, hey, let's face it. We've got basically 4 teams in each division at this point. So who could afford to take another team on? I don't know. You would have to put them either in the East, the AFC East, NFC East. I can't imagine where else they would go. Maybe one of each. And then, of course, I guess you'd have to do the same thing for the other league in the AFC or NFC, but you have to put it maybe in the West from a time zone standpoint. But if that's the case, when we think about it, you still ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Why are the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East? Because that goes back to historical value. That's why they're there, for the same reason that you have other teams that have played in different conferences or different divisions. You're like, what the hell's going on here? But the only expansion that makes sense, according to the NFL map, is maybe 2 in Europe and 2 maybe Portland and maybe Salt Lake City. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, and we'll see you in about 23 hours on your favorite station right here. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.